In the quiet town of Welch, Oklahoma, nestled within Craig County, a horrifying mystery unfolded at the end of the 20th century. What began as an innocent birthday sleepover turned into one of the state's most enduring and disturbing unsolved cases. Two 16-year-old girls, Lauria Bible and Ashley Freeman, disappeared without a trace after a fire tore through the Freeman family's home. What followed was a decades-long investigation marked by shocking discoveries, failed leads, whispered rumors, and the unrelenting determination of grieving parents searching for the truth. Ashley Renee Freeman was born on December 30, 1983, and lived with her parents, Danny and Kathy Freeman. She had a scar on the upper left side of her forehead and was known for her athletic build. At the time of her disappearance, she was in a relationship with a young man named Jeremy Hurst. Ashley's best friend since kindergarten, Lauria Jaylene Bible, was born on April 18, 1983. Lauria had brown hair, hazel eyes, a mole under her nose, and a scar on her head. She had pierced ears and was a straight A student. The two girls were inseparable, often finishing each other's sentences and spending time at each other's homes. On the evening of December 29, 1999, Lauria asked her father, Jay Bible, if she could spend the night with Ashley to celebrate her friend's birthday. Jay told her to be home by noon the next day. Lauria responded with a cheerful, "I love you, Daddy," before walking out the door. Those would be the last words he would ever hear from his daughter. Jeremy Hurst, Ashley's boyfriend, joined the birthday celebration at the Freeman home. He later stated that he left around 9:30 p.m. Everything seemed normal, and there was no indication of the horror that would follow. In the early morning hours of December 30th, at approximately 5:30 a.m., a passerby spotted flames rising from the Freeman's mobile home and called the fire department. By the time firefighters arrived, the trailer was already engulfed in flames. After extinguishing the fire, responders found the body of Kathy Freeman inside the wreckage. An autopsy revealed she had been shot in the head before the fire began. Law enforcement officers from the Craig County Sheriff's Office arrived on the scene along with agents from the Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation. At first, they were only able to locate Kathy's body. Danny Freeman and both girls were missing. Lauria's car remained parked in the driveway with her purse still inside. Her driver's license and nearly $200 in Christmas money were also found untouched, leading investigators to believe robbery was not the motive. Arson experts concluded the fire had been deliberately set to destroy evidence. Investigators began developing early theories. One of the first speculations was that Danny Freeman had murdered his wife and fled with Ashley and Lauria. There had been known tension within the Freeman family. Danny was rumored to have a rocky relationship with his daughter, and law enforcement viewed the situation through the lens of potential domestic violence. However, that theory would not hold for long. On December 31st, the day after the fire, Jay and Lauria Bible returned to the scene. Believing something had been missed, they searched through the charred debris on their own. Within minutes, they discovered another body that had been overlooked. It was burned beyond recognition, but it was clear it belonged to an adult male. Later identified as Danny Freeman, the autopsy confirmed he had also been shot in the head at close range, just like his wife. This discovery shattered the original theory that Danny was the perpetrator. With both parents dead and no sign of the girls, it was now clear that Ashley and Lauria had either been abducted or killed and removed from the scene. This mistake in the initial investigation shook the confidence of the public. If the Freemans had not been found by the girls' own family, would law enforcement have ever discovered the second body? More troubling, the misstep delayed the search for the girls by an entire day. Evidence deteriorated, leads went cold, and public trust in the investigation was fractured. Rumors began to circulate, some more serious than others. A major point of contention between the Freemans and the Craig County Sheriff's Office was the death of their son, Shane Freeman. Months earlier, Shane had been shot and killed by a sheriff's deputy after he reportedly stole a neighbor's truck and firearm. The shooting was ruled justified, but the Freemans were furious. Danny had told family members that they intended to file a wrongful death lawsuit against the department. He had even warned his brother, Dwayne Vansell, that if anything happened to him, the sheriff's department should be considered a suspect. Danny claimed deputies had threatened him and that he feared for the safety of his family. Due to the escalating rumors and potential conflict of interest, the Craig County Sheriff's Department recused itself from the investigation and handed it over to the Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation. Deputies volunteered to undergo polygraph tests, all of which they reportedly passed. OSBI officials publicly stated that there was no evidence the sheriff's department had any involvement in the murders or the girl's disappearance. Even with that theory ruled out, investigators struggled to develop a clear understanding of what had happened. Another line of speculation involved drug activity. There were whispers that Danny Freeman may have been involved in small-scale drug trafficking. An informant claimed he had met with two men shortly before the murders, one of whom was described as unwelcome. The implication was that a drug deal may have gone bad. Still, this theory also raised questions. Why would drug enforcers kidnap two teenage girls instead of killing them at the scene? The idea lacked coherence. A more sensational theory was also explored. Some investigators considered the possibility that Ashley Freeman had killed her parents and fled with Lauria. Tension between Ashley and her father was documented, and some law enforcement officials believed it was worth considering. However, others were quick to dismiss the theory. Special Agent Steve Nutter of OSBI stated that the girls could not have stayed hidden for long. They had no resources, no known plan, and no reason to commit such violence. Lauria's parents were equally convinced that their daughter was simply in the wrong place at the wrong time. Months turned into years. Without solid suspects or physical evidence pointing toward the girl's fate, the case went cold. That changed in 2005 when Jeremy Bryan Jones, a death row inmate, claimed responsibility for the crime. He told authorities he had killed the Freemans and abducted the girls. According to his confession, he drove Lauria and Ashley to Kansas, shot them, and dumped their bodies in an abandoned mine. A full-scale search of the mine was conducted, but nothing was found. Eventually, Jones admitted he had fabricated the entire story in an attempt to gain better treatment in prison. Records showed he had been arrested at 4 a.m. on the morning of the fire, over 18 miles away from the Freeman home. His confession, like many others before and after, led nowhere. The case was again left without answers. Over the next decade, it was featured on multiple national television programs. The story was told on Unsolved Mysteries, America's Most Wanted, and Disappeared. Despite the exposure, no new credible leads emerged. Ashley Freeman was declared legally dead in 2010. Her parents, long deceased, had never lived to see justice for their daughter. Then, in 2017, a small but significant breakthrough occurred. Investigators discovered long-lost notes and documents from the original investigation that had been misplaced or ignored for years. These rediscovered materials contained witness statements and names that had not been fully explored. Among them were references to three men, Ronnie Bissick, Warren Philip Welch II, and David Pennington. What followed was a wave of interviews and renewed investigative work. For the first time in nearly 2 decades, the case had momentum again. Numerous witnesses came forward, some of whom had lived in fear for years. They claimed the three men had repeatedly bragged about killing the Freemans and abducting the girls. According to these accounts, the girls had been held captive in a trailer in Pitcher, Oklahoma. During their captivity, they were restrained with duct tape, raped, tortured, and ultimately murdered. Multiple witnesses claimed to have seen Polaroid photographs that depicted Lauria and Ashley bound and gagged, sometimes lying on a bed, sometimes with Welch in the frame. One of Welch's girlfriends said she had stolen the photos and that Welch had threatened to kill her and put her in the pit with the missing girls if she talked. Other women who had been close to the suspects confirmed that the men had been involved in drugs and frequently referenced the murders. Although many of the photographs were never recovered, the sheer number of consistent witness accounts created a compelling and horrifying picture of what had likely occurred. With multiple witness statements pointing to a group of known criminals, authorities began to assemble a case. The three suspects, Ronnie Dean Bissick, Warren Philip Welch II, and David Pennington, had all lived in northeastern Oklahoma and were known for their drug activity. Welch, who was described by several witnesses as the ringleader, had a disturbing reputation. People who knew him said he carried himself with arrogance and cruelty. Pennington and Bissick were considered accomplices, each playing a role in the events that unfolded after the Freeman family was killed. The turning point in the case came on April 23, 2018. Nearly 19 years after the murders and disappearances, Ronnie Dean Bissick was arrested and charged with 4 counts of first-degree murder, 2 counts of kidnapping, and 1 count of arson. By that time, both Welch and Pennington were deceased. Welch had died in 2007 and Pennington in 2015. That left Bissick as the only surviving suspect. Bissick's arrest was based on testimony collected from over a dozen witnesses. According to the probable cause affidavit, many of them had heard the suspects openly brag about raping and killing the girls. Some had seen photographs that reportedly showed Lauria and Ashley tied up, gagged, and terrified. The pictures were said to be kept in a soft leather briefcase that Welch often carried with him. One of Welch's former girlfriends said she had seen the girls in those photographs, lying on a bed that she recognized as Welch's. She eventually took the photos and hid them, but later lost them. When Welch found out, he threatened to kill her. Another witness, Pennington's former girlfriend, told police that he had confessed to murdering the Freemans and abducting the girls. He told her that the crime had been over a drug debt and warned her to keep quiet or suffer the same fate. A friend of one of Welch's other girlfriends also came forward. She had seen the photos and had also been threatened. A fourth witness said Bissick himself had boasted about being involved and mentioned that they had taken care of the girls, so there would be no witnesses. Despite the growing number of accounts, the authorities had still not located the bodies of Lauria and Ashley. In the months following Bissick's arrest, investigators continued to search properties tied to the suspects. Many of these searches were centered around Pitcher, Oklahoma, where the girls were allegedly held after the murders. Pitcher had once been a booming mining town but was now an abandoned and hazardous ghost town riddled with sinkholes, tunnels, and long-forgotten mine shafts. Some believed the girls' bodies had been dumped into one of these shafts. Others suspected they had been buried in a cellar or covered in concrete on a nearby property. All searches came up empty. On July 15, 2020, Ronnie Bissick entered a guilty plea to a reduced charge. He agreed to plead guilty to accessory to first-degree murder. In return, the more serious charges of murder, kidnapping, and arson were dropped. As part of the plea deal, Bissick was expected to help investigators locate the remains of Lauria Bible and Ashley Freeman by August 31, 2020. That deadline came and went without results. Bissick did not provide any helpful information. Some believed he knew where the girls were but was unwilling to reveal it. Others suspected that Welch and Pennington had been the only ones who truly knew the burial location. Bissick was sentenced to 10 years in prison followed by 5 years of probation. Many felt the sentence was far too light for someone connected to such a brutal and devastating crime. The Bible family, in particular, voiced their heartbreak and frustration. They had waited 2 decades for justice and felt as though the system had failed them again. As the years passed, investigators continued to pursue leads. In April 2021, they searched the root cellar of a property previously occupied by one of the suspects. This location had been mentioned repeatedly by Bissick during conversations. His own stepdaughter had reported that he told her never to go near that cellar. Authorities brought in cadaver dogs, ground-penetrating radar, and excavation equipment. Despite their efforts, the search yielded nothing. Later, in October 2022, another search was conducted in a different part of northeastern Oklahoma based on newly surfaced tips. Once again, no remains were found. The case remained open. The girls were still missing. Their families continued to wait for answers. In May 2023, the news the families had dreaded came to pass. Ronnie Bissick was released from prison after serving just 38 months of his 10-year sentence. He had received credit for time served, along with good behavior and sentence reduction incentives. His release ignited public outrage. The Bible family expressed disbelief that a man who had admitted to participating in a horrific crime was allowed to walk free so soon. Lauria Bible, who had spent nearly every day since 1999 working to find her daughter, was battling serious health problems. Her greatest hope was to bring Lauria's remains home before her health gave out. In the months following Bissick's release, he began to open up further about the crime. Speaking from jail before his release, he gave a detailed account of the night the Freemans were killed and the girls were taken. Bissick said the entire tragedy stemmed from a dispute over less than 2 ounces of methamphetamine. According to his statement, Welch did not want to leave any witnesses behind after the Freemans were murdered. He said the girls were not inside the house during the murders but were hiding in a nearby field. When the trailer was set on fire, they stood up, revealing their location. Welch and Pennington captured them and forced them into a truck. Bissick said the girls were driven to Welch's trailer in Pitcher, where they were tied up and gagged with socks. He claimed Welch injected them with methamphetamine and then physically assaulted them. Bissick described Welch as evil and said he orchestrated everything. He insisted he did not kill anyone, start the fire, or physically harm the girls but admitted to being present and doing nothing to stop it. In the eyes of the law and the families, his inaction made him just as guilty. The level of depravity described in his confession was almost beyond comprehension. It confirmed the worst fears of Lauria and Ashley's loved ones. The girls had not simply vanished. They had suffered in unimaginable ways at the hands of cruel and remorseless men. The Bible and Freeman families continued to fight. In response to Bisic's early release, legislators in Oklahoma proposed a new law. The Lauria and Ashley law would require anyone convicted of accessory to murder to serve at least 85% of their sentence before being eligible for parole. This was a direct response to the anger and frustration many felt after Bisic was allowed to walk free so soon. As of now, the law has passed committee review and is making its way through the Oklahoma legislature. The families hope it will ensure no one else will suffer the same injustice. They also hope it will remind the public and law enforcement that their daughters still have not been found. Media coverage has continued over the years. The story was told on television shows like Vanished with Beth Holloway, Cold Case Files, and Disappeared. In 2019, HLN released a 4-part docuseries titled Hell in the Heartland, based on a book written by crime writer Jax Miller. The book of the same name delves into the details of the case and explores the failures of the investigation. It brought national attention back to the story and introduced a new generation to the unsolved mystery. People magazine Investigates also profiled the case in an episode titled Bible Belt Massacre. These programs have helped keep the case in the public eye, but the most powerful advocacy has always come from the families themselves. Laureen and Jay Bible, along with supporters and volunteers, have continued to distribute flyers, maintain online pages, and speak to media outlets across the country. A $50,000 reward remains available for information leading to the discovery of Lauria Bible and Ashley Freeman. Their families, friends, and supporters refuse to give up. They believe someone knows where the girls are and that even after all this time, justice can still be served. Laureen Bible has said many times that she believes Lauria and Ashley are still together, wherever they are. She dreams of the day she can bring her daughter home, of having a place to visit and remember her, and of finally laying her to rest. This case, now more than 2 decades old, continues to haunt the people of Oklahoma and those who have followed it from afar. It is a story of unspeakable violence, missed opportunities, and a community that has never stopped searching for the truth. More than anything, it is a story of 2 girls whose lives were stolen and whose voices have never stopped echoing through the hills and towns they once called home.